Greetings, friends, and welcome to this edition of Tales from the Tabletop, the video series where I scour the internet and my own personal experiences to bring you anecdotes of adventure, the tragic, the comical, and the highly improbable, from tabletops all across the world, from Warhammer to D&D and everything in between. In each batch of stories, I take my favorite and illustrate it for your listening and viewing pleasure. And today, we begin with a story that is about an unreliable magic item that the players obviously fell in love with. The story is from the HZ, as in the username is the HZ. If there's a reference there, I don't get it. That's what the comments are for. My group consisted of me, an elven ranger, a human cleric, a human sorceress, and a troll fighter. The campaign world had trolls of all sizes and shapes. This character was a medium-sized troll woman. In this campaign, we got lost in a magical forest and tried to find our way out. This took us many sessions before we managed to solve the riddles and find that way out. We encountered a lot of strange beings and got into a lot of trouble. The sorceress started with a magical stone, which she could use to transform things with. The stone was a bit unreliable, but that didn't prevent us from abusing the stone. A lot. The things we did with it include transforming a goblin into a cat-like thing, turning the male cleric into a woman, trying to transform a big rock into an elk, which we needed for a bizarre riddle. We failed miserably. The sorceress grew a pair of elk horns and turned into a half-elk centaur thing. Uses of this stone also included removing the sorceress's arms, putting them back again, but with the right hand on the left and the left hand on the right. After getting out of the forest, we tried using it on an extremely ugly ship's captain to make him more handsome in exchange for passage to a cursed island. Upon using the stone, I rolled a natural 1. The captain turned into a good-looking elven ranger, but I turned into the ship's captain. Thinking fast, I told the crew that I was the real captain and we needed to throw this ranger off the ship and set sail for the cursed island immediately. The troll warrior in our group disappeared once in the forest and then turned up much later, much more naked and covered in strange tattoos. We never found out why. This next story comes from Lycan01, and Lycan writes, I was playing Arkham Horror with a friend, and we'd been going around hunting monsters in order to toughen up our characters. There'd been a ton of weak ones in the college, and I'd killed most of them. Suddenly, 2 more monsters appeared across town. Feeling full of myself, I decided to go kill them in order to get a better gun with their points. So I pranced across the map and attempted to fight them. The first enemy died with ease, and then I turned my attention to the other one. The other enemy totally and completely wrecked me. The thing had way more stamina than I did, and it robbed me of most of my sanity. I went from a 4 to a 1 upon seeing it, which is bad. Very bad. Also, it was immune to most of my weapons, so I tried to fight it, which was a bad idea. Then my turn ran out, and the monster got to fight me. I was crushed utterly, and was essentially flung to the hospital in order to recover. Now, where was my friend and party mate during all of this? Drinking coffee. He found some strange chemicals in a science lab at the college, and he had to do a luck check. Turns out, it was coffee, which refilled all of his stamina and sanity. So while I was getting beaten to a bloody and twitching pulp, he was enjoying a premier Colombian roast. I don't know about y'all, but coffee definitely does a whole lot for the sanity for me. Just, anyone else? No, I mean, it's not that I'm addicted. I can quit anytime I want. This next story comes from Project Mayhem. My party was infiltrating a cultist temple. The party was my character, a changeling ninja, and a tiefling sword sage. We were on scouting duty. We found a guard in front of a large door and swiftly dispatched him. Unfortunately, he managed to let loose a blood-curdling scream as he died. Thinking on my feet, I quickly disrobed him, shifted to imitate him, and put his clothes on while I whispered at the sword sage to hide the body in the dark. Almost immediately, 2 cultists burst through the door. I managed to pass my disguise check, and after concocting a story about banging my foot, I passed my bluff check. Then they turned to look down the corridor. Sword Sage rolled a 1 on his hide check. Cultist 1 turns to me and says, Brother, why is there a horned man in black tightly hugging a naked corpse that looks suspiciously like you against the wall over there? I took a deep breath and said, well, brother, there's a perfectly logical explanation for sudden strike in the face. Our next story comes from someone called Kazil Darkeye. Or perhaps Kazil Darkeye. Fantasy names. We never know how to pronounce these bloody things. My group was trekking through a Yuan-Ti forest, and Yuan-Ti in D&D are the snaky-looking people. We were an NPC human archer ranger, my friend, a Duragar barbarian, and my sister, an Asamar bard. They were walking along when they heard 2 voices calling out to them. The Yuan-Ti said, "Trespassers will be killed." The bard says to the DM, "Hey, they're about 180 feet away, right?" "Yeah, about." "So, we can do stuff before they get here." "Yeah, you could hide." The barbarian added, "Not a bad idea." The bard said, "I want to cast some spells." "Sure. First, I want to cast light on my headband. Next, I cast Summon Monster to summon a celestial owl, and cast light on it as well." "Okay, good." I tell the owl to hold on to my back. "Wait, what are you?" "Now, I'm going to use Bardic Knowledge. What's the name of a really powerful angel?" "I don't know. Celestius?" "Celestius is a boy name. What else you got?" "Celestia." The Yuan-Ti arrive, and the bard has the owl grip her and flap its wings and hover her off the ground as she activates her spells and says, "Stop! I am Celestia, and I command you!" Now for the bluff check. Natural 20. The Yuan-Ti fall to their knees and begin bowing emphatically. On another occasion, with the same bard, when we were in the town market several miles back, she got talked into buying some diseased cookies from a hobo. Spin on a while and we need to cross a toll bridge over a raging river guarded by a troll. The troll says, "Give me all your stuff in order to cross." The bard says, "Hey, I'll give you this cookie." I think her wisdom was still drained from her eating one of those cookies, but she rolled a natural 20 on her diplomacy. The troll looked at her and said, "Well, I is kinda hungry." It eats the cookie and rolls a natural 2 for its fortitude save. The troll half ran and half danced his way to the outhouse. I, the DM, say to them, "You are all horrible people." After this, the troll's buddy comes out of the gatehouse. He spots that we have a dwarvish barbarian in our party. Trolls hate dwarves. So the troll attacks immediately. The barbarian kills him with a critical hit. So I rule that he stumbles backwards and crashes into the outhouse and landed on the first troll who was seated and indisposed. Then the bard begins to serenade them. horrible, horrible people. Our next story comes from Azalin the Great. In one game that I was in, we had to signal down a demigod who lived on a floating castle in the sky. Unfortunately, being 7th level characters, we did not have much power, so we couldn't think of anything to do. Until my character, an alchemist, remembered that the castle was usually surrounded by storm clouds. So my character decides, this is great, I'll just get some cable, do the whole key on a kite thing. The only problem is making the kite. We did not have time to make something that could hold enough metal to make a significant lightning strike. So, we turned to one of the few magic items that we had, a Cloak of the Bat. One of us would have to wear it while carrying all the weaponry we had. Eventually, we turned the Ranger into a kite. We only had 3 members, myself, who was way too scrawny to survive even a single lightning strike, a Paladin, who was less than lucky on his hit point rolls, and a Ranger, who was basically our tank. Just surprising, usually isn't the Paladin the tank? Put it in the comments. We strung the Ranger up, carrying as much metal as he could hold, and had him get struck by lightning. Even to this day, 3 years later, it cracks us up to think about. The player can't figure out for the life of him how we talked him into it. I know what you're wondering. Did he live? Actually, he did. My cloak got fried, though, and I'll never let him live that down. This next one comes from a DM who's looking for a bit of advice, and lucky for this DM, the first commenter has exactly the advice that our intrepid DM needs. Here we go. It is from user Far Sheepherder. Title, Do I owe my players anything? I have had a 5e group playing on Discord and Roll20 for about 4 years now. I've had fun, and they've said they've had fun. For various reasons, I am done with 5e, and I'm planning on switching to old school essentials. But we're in the middle of a campaign. Most of my players started playing with 5e, so they have no experience with other systems. My general plan is to just try and finish the campaign by the end of the year, and then cut over to old school essentials in January. I'm planning on bringing this up to the group soon, but my general feeling is that they will mostly not be interested in switching. Character death and the loss of all the shiny level up powers would not make them happy. I feel bad for changing direction halfway through a big campaign, but likewise, I honestly hate 5e more and more every time I play it now. Do I owe it to my players to finish it, or does my plan sound fair enough? Should I just discuss it with them and make the break sooner? I have my own knee-jerk reactions and my own advice to give, but the very first comment beneath this says it all. This is from the username Alicia, and Alicia writes, Do you owe your players anything? The short answer is no. The longer answer is still no. In my opinion, the real question is, what do you owe yourself? You started this journey 4 years ago. It has been as much your campaign as it has been theirs, and now you're tired. Do you feel like you want to finish this journey proper, or has it gotten too much for you? Whatever the answer is should drive your decision. What you owe your fellow players is to be honest with them and to treat them like real humans. Talk with them and do what feels right for you to do. There's a famous quote by Humphrey Bogart that says, "The only thing I owe my audience is a good performance." Now, on the one hand, I understand where this DM is coming from. It's a whole big story, and you're only halfway through, and you want to give your players the payoff, and the players want the payoff. And there is kind of an understanding that if we start this thing together, we'll finish it together. If I invest in your world and your scenarios, you'll invest in my characters and their journey. And I can understand the knee-jerk reaction. I need to finish it. I owe it to my players. Except, this is a hobby. I'm assuming that you're not getting paid for this, and even if you are, I'm assuming it's not paying your bills. It's a hobby. It's for fun. When it stops being fun, it stops serving its purpose. You could try to morph the game into the old school essential rule set. It'd be real easy for your players to pick up. And saying we can keep going if we switch rule sets might incentivize them to give it a shot if they wouldn't normally. But you're perfectly within your rights to say, y'all, I'm burnt and I can't hang anymore. I need to end this. It was a lot of fun. By all means, take your characters, and if y'all can find a way to finish this together, feel free. Maybe write up a little outline of how the rest of it was going to go. Maybe find some way to truncate the whole second half, and in like 1 or 2 marathon sessions, just get to the climax, get to the payoff, and give it to them thusly. So instead of waiting months for January to roll around and for you to wrap up what has been a years-long campaign, weeks. It'll just take you weeks. 4 weeks. Take one week to plan it out, to plan out your truncation and how you're going to do it. And follow the writer's ultimate bane. You have to kill your darlings. A lot of your favorite story moments, you're going to have to cut in order to get to the end. So that's 1 week. And then you've got 2 marathon sessions. That's 2 different weekends or 2 very long nights during the week, whichever you like. And you've got 1 more week as a spare for when someone inevitably says, something's come up, I can't make it. So 1 week for margin of error. That's another idea. But the broad strokes, it's a hobby. It's fun. This is leisure time. You don't owe. Exactly what Alicia said. It's as much your campaign as it is theirs. You're allowed to say you're done. Our next story is short and gross, and this one comes from XS Jado. We had just killed a black dragon in a funny way. At least the dragon thought so. Our bard, who had been pretty useless up to this point, used one of his abilities to make the dragon collapse with laughter. So we all just beat on it until it died. A bit dull as far as fantasy dragon fights go, but we were all laughing at the table when this happened. So it's still a success. Far funnier than that is what happened afterwards. The paladin asked, "Boy, all this dragon killing is making me thirsty. What's to drink?" The GM says, "You look around. There's a large pile of treasure in the middle, a door to the west, and a pool of liquid about 20 feet square in the southeast corner." The paladin says, "I walk over to the pool and take a few big gulps." "Okay, take 3d6 damage." "Excuse me, what?" "Black dragon urine is poisonous. Take 3d6 damage." "What? I never said the liquid was water." This next one comes from Anonymous, and Anonymous writes, "I ran a superhero setting based on mutants and masterminds. I love me some homebrews, and among the team was Lich Zors, a computer nerd turned into a massively magical lich, and Vanity, a vampire hunting male model with light powers. Vanity is stalking a particular vampire and finds the ghost of one of her victims. Sending the ghost to rest by swearing vengeance on her killer, she finds the body buried in the walls and takes it for a proper burial. The game was rarely this somber. Vanity returns to the team with a wrapped-up corpse and offers it to the Lich. "Can you do something with this, please?" The Lich says, "Oh yeah, sure, no sweat." Snaps his fingers, and the ghost gets sucked back into the body, and the corpse sits up painfully. Vanity shouts, "What? Why would you do that?" Lich Zors responds, "I'm a necromancer. You handed me a dead body. What did you think was gonna happen?" This next story is even shorter, but no less hilarious, and it is sent to us by Xenon. We're fighting a random encounter on our way to the boss, and I was playing a paladin. In round 1 of combat, I fumbled and accidentally ran myself through with my own greatsword. But I survived. On round 2, I asked my DM if I could quick draw my sword. He told me that I could if I had trained for a long time, so I spent that round pulling my sword out of my own guts. It took the entire round. On round 3 of combat, I rolled 3 consecutive 1s and killed myself outright. This next one is from Earthwalker. Earthwalker writes, a group of players sneaking into an Aztechnology compound. They get over the wall and are sneaking past 2 guards who are standing and talking. The elf sneaks past with a great roll and beckons the rest of the players to come over. The dwarf goes next. He gets an average roll, and I tell him the guards hear something moving and start to look around. Thinking fast, the dwarf makes a meow meow noise in the dark. The guards look at each other, shrug, and then get back to chatting. The orcish character, called, I kid you not, the Lone Ranger, tries to sneak past. Again, average roll. I say again, the guards hear something. Since it worked last time, he does the meow meow noise, and the guards go back to talking. The final character, another orc called Tonto, rolls terribly. The guards shine their flashlights over towards the area where the characters are hiding. Tonto says, "Oh, don't worry about me. I'm just the dog after those first 2 cats." We spent 10 minutes laughing before we could even roll initiative. All right, this last story is from Christopher, and it is called The Balad of Arthur Burke. And Christopher was answering a question. He was answering the prompt, as a player of tabletop role-playing games, what is the strangest experience you had when someone discovered that you played that kind of game? And this is the story I've been illustrating the whole time, so I hope it was worth the wait, and I hope you enjoy. Way back in the mists of time, I lived in Columbia, South Carolina. There was a guy in Columbia, Art Burke. If you were musically inclined, you talked to Art, because he knew every barman in town and he could get you a gig. I'm a big fellow. I stand 6 foot 6 inches tall, but I can disappear behind Art. He was built like a freaking mountain. Huge dude, long hair, full beard, dressed like a biker. Nobody ever messed with Art. At the time, there was a new college band appearing in Columbia. Some guy named Darius Rucker and his band. They had the dumbest name, Hootie and the Blowfish. Art hooked him up with, if not his first gig, one of his first gigs. Hootie became a regular at Yesterday's Tavern. And man, we heard him play there so often, we got tired of the guy. During the course of these human events, Art found out that I ran a D&D game. Of all people I figured would be interested, Art was probably last on my list, but he was thrilled. He insisted that we start running a session in the back room before the evening crowd started packing in, and he joined us every time he was in the neighborhood. Fun times. Art didn't own Yesterday's Tavern, but the man was magical. He was so connected to the music scene and on such good terms with all the barmen. If he wanted to use your back room, he got to use your back room. This story takes me back to being a little kid in the 90s and not having a source of my own music at the time, listening to the radio because I loved music from a very early age, and y'all, Hootie and the Blowfish was on that radio 6 times a day, and I was tired of them after hearing them once. And I'm not over here talking smack. I've got nothing but love for Darius Rucker. I've got nothing but love for the Blowfish, I guess they're called. I heard they're making a comeback recently, which, good luck to them, just as long as I don't have to hear it. But y'all, he was part of that wave of 90s frontmen and lead singers. Just open your mouth, dude. open your mouth and enunciate. And while you're at it, say the same thing to Kurt Cobain and the lead singer from Pearl Jam. I forget his name, but oh, gracious. It was a joke how indecipherable those lyrics were with all those marbles in their mouth. So much so, Weird Al made a song about it, about Cobain. I don't know that anybody made a song about Hootie on account of Hootie's less funny, and frankly, the songs are less good to my ears. Your mileage may vary. Not trying to yuck anybody's yum. Speaking as a musician for myself, guys like Art in this story are such a big deal. They're such a godsend when nobody knows you, nobody knows your name. You've been working on your music for so long and you just want to get on a stage, any stage. Just start somewhere. Guys like Art Burke, they are solid, salt of the earth guys who people like me owe a lot to. So when I was making this, I wanted to honor the man as best I could. I have no idea what he looks like aside from the description that was in the story, so I just took that description and thought, what is the most heroic way I can depict that guy, and what you see on the screen is the result. If you would like the original art from this episode, it'll be for sale on my website at coffeeandhate.biz. Click on store at the top. And in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, thank you for listening, and may your dice roll high and never be cursed.